Hiya, I'm Unknown, and today we're working on a new map for today. This one is going to be a 400 by 400 Temperate Forest map. It'll focus on an island as well as a large selection of mountains. This is available for everyone with a large selection of ideas for you to choose, either whether you're wanting to do an underground build in the mountains or focus on an island defense within the island. To starters, we're digging out a lot of the area to add more ocean to serve as the place for the island. We're also going to remove some of the stones so we have a little bit more area. We're going ahead and getting the basic shape of everything. So we've already gotten a lot of our land area shaped out as well as our island shaped out. We're going back in and also getting the basic shapes for a lot of the stone. What we want this to be is a secluded cove, so a lot of the left, top, and right side are going to be covered by stone. We'll only have one entrance to the outside world, minus the ocean, which will be entirely deep, to reduce any spawn from there. We're additionally going ahead and just getting a lot of the basic shape for the mountains on the islands. We're also going to go back and start smoothing out a lot of the area. I will come back and add a little bit more layers to this to make it a little bit more deeper, but for right now this is going to be working. We're going to go ahead and fill in a lot of this area, as well as cut back on some of the area that we didn't need. I wanted this section down here to be a little bit more of an easier cliff, so it's not really that deep. With a lot of this filling in, we're using mostly marble and slate for this map. A lot above the south left side is a lot of marble sections, while the top and right sides are a lot of slate. You can go ahead and see that we're smoothing off a lot of the area, making it a little bit more uniform, as well as adding a little bit more stone to some of the areas I forgot to add it, such as in here. We want this right side entrance to be a cave, so we're wanting to fill up the entire area completely. We're also going ahead and filling in a lot of the stone that is available for the island access. Eventually we will come back and add all of the ores and everything, but as I said, for right now we're just getting the basic shape of everything. We'll also come back and smooth out a lot of the terrain since a lot of it is blocky. We're also adding a little bit of extra slate and stones, just to make it a bit more kind of smoother. We want it to be a little bit more nice. With this, it's time to actually focus on the terrain, getting it a lot more smoothed out and adding a little bit more uniqueness to it. We'll also come back later and add a lot of the sand and gravel for a lot of the beaches. This is basically just to get a better idea of how much area is actually covered by stone and how much isn't. You can start to see the island starts to come life with a lot of this smoothing out. Instead of that blocky shape, we now get proper little areas. And with this coming back, we're also going to go ahead and add a lot of the stone to the mountain walls. We want to make them a little bit more deeper, as this will also benefit in adding a few caves to the terrain. A lot of this map doesn't focus on major caves, but so we add them just to create some unique access points for a lot of the different parts. A lot of the different beaches are closed off and only accessed by a cave. We'll also see us go ahead and add a little bit more stones, again just making it a bit more unique. With that, we're going to go ahead and just add a little bit more to the south side, and then we're going to focus a little bit more on terrain. Additionally, adding the slate, we're also going to go ahead and perform just a little bit more stone, which we'll eventually use for like a little cave that the river is running through. We also focus a little bit on the cave up here, as I noticed it was close to an ancient danger. So I'm going to go ahead and make it properly excavated so it's a little bit easier to access later. A lot of the problems with this map is that a lot of the ancient dangers are completely enclosed in stone. To finish off, we're adding a lot of our overhead mountains. We'll also come back and add all the ore shortly. But for starters, we're adding all the mountains just to make it so we know a lot of the area. One thing I intend to do in the future, which one thing I didn't really focus on now, is adding the other layer of stone, or other layer of roof that goes between mountains. I think it's called thin rock levels, but honestly I mostly forget about it. I also went ahead and added some overhead stone for different parts of the islands, just to take away if you want to do a sort of undergrounder within the island, you have some few different spots will make it easier. This will be especially good for caches and everything that you don't want drop pods to come into. We're also going to go ahead and carve out the area for a lot of the caves, including the one that accesses the outside world. Instead of doing just normal kind of smooth runnings, I'm taking the brush for the destroy command and then just kind of going back and forth to make the width, slowly moving it to get the actual layout of the caves. You can see it causes like these little spots to appear whenever we're making the caves, which I like to add as they kind of remind me of like stalagmites. Just picking up, and also they help to support the terrain so there's no cave-ins. We're also going to go back and edit the one with the ancient danger so it has a little bit more room. With that, it's time to finally work on this kind of all the ores. Start off with steel. One thing I like to do is to add a little bit of these kind of pathways. These are more kind of focused ore veins instead of the little clumps that you get with a lot of the base game. I did go ahead and add a ton of ores to this map, so I might go back and delete them soon, but for right now they serve as a perfect kind of lush paradise for collecting stuff. We're also going and adding a little bit of these silver ores, which I decided to just do as little circles or vines. Then we go back and we add a little bit of the more rare ores, adding just little kind of spots of it everywhere. We're also going ahead and adding a lot of compact machinery, so it makes it a lot easier for later playthroughs, and then kind of finally adding my little signature to it. I decided to change it up a little bit. It does just say UK, but there is a small little N at the top. With that, we're going to just go reflect on the map and decide what we're going to be doing next. A lot of focus now is to switch on making all the beaches, so I'm taking the sand terrain and just setting a lot of that area. One thing I like to do is just to make the sand a little bit more deeper, but as well scatter some soils into it. Sand flows a lot different, so you can have little different pockets of dirt and everything. I also use a little bit of the soft sand to kind of mimic kind of different dunes and everything that appear on a lot of beaches. The dunes are a major protection for a lot of inland areas, so it's beneficial to have these here. You can also see some parts I actually don't include beaches, instead leaving it as basic dirt. I'll come back and add gravel to these, just to kind of give a different kind of stony beach look. You can see that the island originally was separated into two, but the sand acts as a natural kind of connection between them, excluding the rock, so you don't have to mine it out. With a lot of the sand, I also go ahead and add little banks in the water, which will act as an extra defense, but also as just a nice little pretty thing. I'll come back later on and add more, as I decided it wasn't really working perfectly for what I thought it would be. We're also going to work on adding sand to a lot of the main area as well to act as the larger beaches. We'll see it in different sections where I add it. I'll also come back and I'll add sand as well to the entrance for the river and kind of split it up with a little island. You can also see a few more of these sandbanks being made. I think doing this and kind of having the dirt levels makes it look a lot better and a lot more interesting. Also finally come back and add all the deep ocean, so now the world is properly protected. You can see that a lot of the southern areas have a little bit more deeper areas, and then we're going to come back and bring that ocean deep completely inside. This kind of causes a difficult area where you don't have that many points to access the ocean, which makes it a little bit more easier, or many access points for the islands. You can also see that I kind of have an implied area to access with the two rocks on the right side that are connected with the cave, or the overhang. I think this would be an optional or more perfect area to access the island and make it a little bit more easier, but if you have the deep water beaches, or deep water bridges more say, you can access it in different locations. I also go ahead and add just a little lake to the island to make it a little bit more interesting, as well as adding a few different lakes across the map. One thing these will do is just add a chance to add freshwater fish, which if you ever focus on like collecting and everything, you just like to have, especially with your working with Odyssey and can do all the fishing. We're also going to go ahead and destroy all plants, and we're going to go ahead and focus on a lot of the extra terrain feature, which is focusing on all the rocks. This kind of goes into the later part of map making, where you focus on adding a kind of 2 to 3 deep layer of the rough terrain. So this is, for example, marble rough and slate rough. I go ahead and add it to all versions of the terrain before I focus on the gravel next. I also use this to interconnect rocks that are separated by soil. This makes it look a little bit more easier and makes them look a bit more continuous. This also helps to separate terrain and make it just look a bit better with different areas. With all of that done, we'll come back and we'll do gravel. As I mentioned before, I like to use the soil fertility feature to edit all gravel in. Since gravel focuses as between the rough and the soil, it makes it a lot easier to see it, since gravel does kind of look like soil, except for its fertility. So just focusing on, I also add it into the caves to make them a little bit more lush whenever we add plants again, as that'll make them spawn better. It'll add more mushrooms and glowing features, which make the world a lot more interesting. Some of the tedious parts can be a lot of this editing terrain where you're adding all the different functions and adding all the different kind of layers, but it does help make the world a lot more prettier and a lot more enjoyable to be in. You can also see I'm adding some of that gravel to a little bit of the different beaches I left bare, giving those gravel beaches instead of the dirt beaches. With this, we actually add a colonist, and I go ahead and refog the entire map so that everything's a little bit more hidden. And then I start working on the later areas, which is where we want to add custom buildings. They'll serve as little ruins for you to explore. To start off with, we're going ahead and adding a few different roads, and we're splitting them up with dirt to make them look a little bit more overgrown, as well as adding a bridge. I decided not to make the bridge a little bit more ruined and make it more of a static one. I go ahead and start building a lot of the different houses that I want, kind of changing up their shapes and using different styles. We'll also go ahead and see that I add a little bit of floors to it. I like to do these scattered floors because it makes it look ripped up and like plants will show up and grow through it. At first I intended to use just some normal like buildings to it, but I decided to use the spawn thing feature and spawn in some ancient different buildings, including ancient refrigerators, toilets, beds, and even small crates. These make the world look a little bit more kind of ruined and interesting, as well as adding a few cars into the mix. For this one, I added a few different beds and an operating table, and this one's got a little bit more machinery to it. I can imagine this was just a small little outpost that was lived in by a few groups of people. One thing I like to do is I'll use the mod Give Up Your Buildings to get rid of a lot of the ownership of all of this, so if you choose not to settle into it, you don't have to, and it'll just list as certain ruins. You'll go ahead and see I remove the home area and go ahead and work on another building. This one's a little bit more on the main road and kind of just serves as another little base. You have different areas for different refrigerators. As I imagined, it's kind of like an outpost for a hunter who has a lot of different storage going on. We also see another one of those cars, and we go ahead and add the last one, which will be in the southeast or southwest part of the map. This one's a little bit of a smaller hut and kind of served as storage before we go working on a little bit more of the water. My actual editing or camera cut off a little bit, so you kind of immediately skips to working a little bit more on the water, where I decided to add these little coves. All I did was add a little bit of marsh and more waters to the map to make it a bit more interesting. Finally, with more sand on the map, it's time to go ahead and just regen the entire map for new plants. And with that, the world is completely done, so of course, thank you all for watching. This map is available for download. I will mention it was a requested commission, so of course, thanks to the person who requested it. With it downloaded, have fun, and I hope you all enjoy. And remember, rule number 1 is just stay on